ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येम अक्षभिः यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवांसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति नः इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नः दार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्ददातु ॐ शान्तिः 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 देवं नत्वा सर्वदोषविवर्जितं परिपूर्णं गुरुंश्चान् गीतार्थमक्षामि लेशतः. So good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to friends. We have assembled here for Atma Samyama Yoga Part B, led by Suresh D, GVG. So I'm going to stop sharing this slide and over to you, Suresh D.
Thanks, Madhu. I'll just start sharing. Are the slides visible?
Yeah, all good. Yeah.
Okay. We'll get started then.
You need to switch on your video, Suresh.
Yes, please. Yeah. Om Manojavam Marutatulyavegam Jitendriyam Buddhimatam Varishtam Vatatmajam Vanarayuta Mukyam Sriramudutam Shirsana Harihi Om. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening session of Chapter 6. And as you would all recollect, this is the second session on Chapter 6 that we are having. What we will do today is just recap a little bit of what was discussed in the last session, and then we will proceed with the remaining part of Chapter 6. So just to get started, what's the relevance of Chapter 6? Chapter 6 is coming at the very end of what we call as the first Shatka of Bhagavad Gita, which is Sadhana Dhyaya. Now, so Krishna has told us, he's told us about Karma Yoga, he's told us about Jnana Yoga, how they are intertwined. And now at the very end of the culmination of Sadhana Yoga, he takes us to Dhyana Yoga. And this is all in preparation to the next Shatka, which is the Sadhyadhyaya, wherein the qualities of the Lord are going to be discussed. So fundamentally, from Karma Yoga, what one could say is there's an externally manifest life of work that one does. It is intertwined with an internally manifest Dhyana Yoga life renunciation, which leads to dispassion and dedication, and that's when we acquire the right to to learn, to know about the qualities of Bhagavanta, knowing which, of course, we can get rid of this samsara, because then we live the life of a yogi. Moving forward, what we did last time was just the intro of it. Then Madhuji wonderfully took us through the matters of the mind and why the mind matters. And then the practice of Dhyana Yoga and its outcome was discussed by Venkiji. Today, the same discussion will be taken forward. GVG will discuss about the control of desire and supreme bliss. And then Arjuna asks some very, very pertinent questions, and Krishna deals with him, revealing the all-mercifulness of the Lord. And we'll conclude the first Shatka by the end of the last verse of this chapter. Just before we close, Neetaji will just give us a glimpse, a hint about the quiz that she will be conducting in the next session, which is going to cover the entire first 6 chapters. So that's the plan for today. And just again, to carry on with the brief recap, as we had discussed, we started with Krishna at this very culmination of Sadhana Adhyaya, starts with fundamentally telling us who a sannyasi, what is it that he means when he uses the word sannyasi, and also the word yogi. So when it comes to practical application, fundamentally they virtually mean one and the same. A yogi by definition is a sannyasi but cannot help being a yogi. So therefore, when what's being told here applies to not the fourth order of our this one, which is brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyasi. It's not this sannyasi that we are talking about. Krishna, in fact, says that it applies to everybody. And what is the meaning of the word sannyasi? Some nyasaha, we talked about it. Some is also Vishnuvachaka along with the other letters here. And then basically one needs to deposit everything into the Lord with no anticipation of anything in return. Then he went on to describe the seeker and the seer. The seeker, Aruruksho, has to climb up the ladder and gain progress in time to come. And this, that the person who's already reached there, again, this person is not going to be sitting idle. This person also has to do japa, tapa, harikatha, pravachana, when not in samadhi, experience the state of samadhi and keep making progress. Very importantly, we discussed what karma means, nana jana shushrusha. And of course, karma also means something that's mandatory for us. Having been lucky enough to get this human birth, there are certain things that we ought to do, and that is also karma. So what's the status of this yoga rudha? Yoga rudha is someone who's done sarva sankalpa tyaga. Sarva sankalpa tyaga is fundamentally the answer for two questions as to who is the doer and who is in control. And if we have clarity about this, then we move up the ladder towards the state of samadhi, wherein we should be able to do spontaneous, purposeful assigned action without any attachment. So that was the first part of the first few shlokas of chapter 6 that we did. Then we moved on to the matters of the mind. Madhuji, if I may request you to please summarize both yours and Venkiji's session as we discussed last time, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sureshji. So I got about, let me say, 6 to 8 minutes to try and bring us back to what we discussed about 3 to 4 weeks ago, probably a bit longer than that, about mind and why is it all important. So just a brief background to all this. So if you can recall, and this is one of the most, this is a famous verse in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, where there is a discussion between Yajnavalkya and Maitreyi. And Maitreyi asks, so what is the route for salvation? How do I achieve salvation? So Yajnavalkya says, Atma va are drashtavyaha, shrotavyo mantavyo, nitidhyasitavyaha Maitreyi. So that is the route. There is no other route. People may think otherwise, but this is the route that is described in the Vedas. What is that route? To achieve Paramatma or to reach him, you got a process. What is that process? Shravana, Manana, Nitidhyasana. So, Shravana, Manana, and Dhyana are the prerequisites before you have what? Darshana of Paramatma. Yeah, that is seeing the Paramatma face to face. Okay, so these are the prerequisites around Shravana, Manana, and Dhyana. So the question is, how do we go about doing it? So in the modern life, we all have very busy, personal lives, social lives, professional lives, and so on. So there are so many conflicting variables that we have to juggle constantly in our lives. Do we have to compartmentalize each, or do we have to achieve a state where we are able to somehow manage our busy schedule, but at the same time we are able to carry on with our spiritual progress? So this is the key discussion here. All that we have discussed so far is theory, and Krishna is telling us, how do you put this into practice? How do you do this? Okay. So for that, we last time we had this verse from Katha Upanishad of Krishna Yajurveda, where there is a conversation between Yama and Nachiketa, and Yama is teaching Nachiketa about this body, and he says, look, Atmanam Ratinam Vidhi, Shariram Ratamevatu Vidhi, Buddhim tu Saratim Vidhi, Manaha Pragraham Yevacha, Indriyani Hayanayahu, Vishayanteshu Gocharan. So this is the fundamental view of Vedic philosophy of how we view this body. Okay. The key is we are different from the body, so that we have understood the theory of it. There is the soul and then there is the body. The body has got various components. Okay. If you think this whole chariot is the body, that is fine. That is what our Yama is teaching. This whole body is the chariot. Now, this chariot has got what? It's got a driver. Okay. The driver is the intellect. What is the driver doing? He is holding the reins of these horses. So the rein is compared to the mind. And the reins are holding what? It's holding five horses. The five horses corresponding to the five indriyas that we have put a yellow colored arrow there to indicate what the indriyas are. So we got five jnana indriyas. Of course, there is the karma indriyas, but the view here is we understand and gain the knowledge of the external world through the jnana indriyas, which is depicted here with the five horses. So what are these sense organs? So these are basically the sense organs that we all have in the sadhana sharira. There may be lower forms of life which may have fewer indriyas, and some indriya may be more developed than the others. But for a sadhana sharira like our human body, these are the five indriyas that we have at our disposals to interact with the external world. So this is the equation. And then, of course, is the passenger who's sitting here. The passenger is instructing the driver to take him to a particular destination. So the passenger has to be in control. None of us get into a bus which has if a bus doesn't have any destination, we don't get into that. Or if we own, or if we have a car, we sit in the car. If there is a driver, we sit and say, take me to this mall or take me to this shopping center. So we give those instructions. And that is exactly what the body is also doing in this equation, where the jiva is giving instruction or should be giving instruction to the buddhi, and the buddhi to the mind, and the mind to the sense organs, so that we go either towards prayers or shreyas. And last week in the Upanishad Chinthana, we had enough discussion about how our Yama was enticing Nachiketa to go towards various sense objects. And of course, our friend Nachiketa refused everything. And he said, I want only Paramatma. I want to go only towards Shreyas. Why is that very important? Going towards Shreyas is the path to Shravana, Manana, Nitidhyasana. That Shravana, Manana, Dhyana that is described in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is the path to Shreyas. So the key question here is, how do we do that? Okay, so how do I get in control of this mind, the mind complex? And we know that mind has got five different components: manas, buddhi, ahankara, chitta, chetana. And we have discussed all that in great detail. So what our Krishna is doing here is, through Arjuna, he is giving us some hint as to how to handle this whole mind complex, the components of the mind. Even if you take, let's take the mind, how do we handle that? Okay. So what has he said? I'll just take one verse from my part. So 6.5. Uddaret atmana atmanam na atmanam avasadayet atmaiva hi atmano bandhuhu atmaiva ripuratmanaha. He said Atma so many times, 7 times in that verse. And last time we understood that the word Atma needs to be taken in context. It can mean the mind, it can mean the body, it can mean the jiva, it can mean Paramatma. So we understood that we have to take this in context. And Srimad Acharya, in both Gita Bhashya and Gita Tatparya, he has taken these approaches, and he has taken, say, for example, take the Atma as the mind, and there this verse is Atma is your best friend. Atma can also be your worst enemy. Use the Atma to elevate yourself. Don't misuse the Atma, because if you misuse that mind, you fall down. Why? If you misuse the mind, you go towards prayers. If you use the mind, get it under control and say that every Sunday, 3 o'clock, I am going to commit myself to this satsang. Every day, I'm going to spend 2 hours reading. I'm going to do Shravana, Manana, and so on. Then that is how we direct the mind and take towards Shreyas. If, for example, we don't do that, the mind becomes your worst enemy. That is what he said in the others and the next verse. The mind becomes your worst enemy, in the sense not that the mind is going to come and kill you or something. No, if you don't control the mind, you go more and more towards prayers. And when you go more and more towards prayers, what happens? You build lots of karmic imprints. The more karmic imprints you imprint, the more you're going to cycle in birth and rebirth and so on and so forth. And there is no solution to you. There is no liberation. So in that sense, mind is your worst enemy. But if you control your mind and move towards Shravana Manana, then it becomes your greatest friend. What is that greatest friend? It takes you towards salvation eventually. Yeah. So a mind is a valuable friend when it is free from vicious thoughts, and it's under control of its master and acts always in obedience to its master. Okay. And the four we have discussed just now. So that is from the Gita Bhashya perspective. If we take the Gita Tatparya perspective, we have to understand there is this Paramatma who is ultimately called Atma. He is an independent controller of everything. And if we surrender to Paramatma, he saves us and lifts us as shown in the divine grace. When we do Shravana, Manana, Dhyana, Then there is the divine grace that gives you the aparoksha jnana. Once you have the aparoksha jnana, you are ensured for liberation. So Paramatma will lift you up if you become his friend, in the sense if you surrender to him. If you ignore him and if you say he is a useless character, good for nothing, or you don't even think about him, then what happens? You go in the whirlpool of this samsara. You lose that, you don't get that opportunity of a divine grace to lift you up. So in that sense, he is your worst enemy, in the sense that you have made him, it is the jiva that has made Paramatma as the worst enemy. Paramatma is always the same for everyone. Okay, so that is the essence of what we had dealt with about the matter and matters of the mind. It boils down to how you control your physical material mind, and at the same time, how do you surrender to this Atma who is the Paramatma. So if you do that from a mind control perspective, then you can, discipline yourself to go towards Shravana and Manana and Dhyana. So Shravana and Manana is a prerequisite for Dhyana. Okay. So that is a key idea that you need to remember. Shravana and Manana will give you the knowledge, and with the knowledge, you go in for meditation, Dhyana. Okay. So how does that Dhyana happen? What is the preparation for Dhyana? Is what Venki ji had given us an excellent summary over several slides. So next slide, please. Yeah, thank you very much, Suresh ji. So this word, it was a beautiful set of slides from GVG, from Venki ji. So what did Venki ji tell us about? He told us about, yes, it's all fair and good. You have Shravana and Manana, and then Krishna has said, at some point you got to go into my deep contemplation, because that is when you're going to get aparoksha jnana. Without aparoksha jnana, you can't go in. There is no liberation. So the key there is, I've had all the paroksha jnana, but who this Paramatma is, how am I going to get aparoksha jnana? So that is what is the challenge here, isn't it? So what Venki ji told us is, how do we go about getting into this mode of dhyana yoga so that we reach aparoksha jnana, or we attain aparoksha jnana. So what are the prerequisites? The prerequisites is avoid unnecessary interactions with the external world. So that is the first thing that you need to do. Avoid distractions. How do you avoid distractions? Stop interacting with people with whom you can't have a spiritual engagement. Avoid unnecessary contact. Go to an isolated place. Isolate yourself. That doesn't mean you run into a forest. No, you can still find a space in your own house to kind of quieten yourself, silence yourself, be in a room, for example. That itself is being in a quiet place. So do that first. Find a quiet place, no sensory inputs. Okay. Then what do? You have to still your body. If you still your body, then you still your mind. So that is the next step. So you got to still your body. How are you going to still your body? Krishna says, if you want to go into dhyana, you got to find a good place, quiet place, comfortable place. You got to sit. How do you sit? Even that prescription has been given. The contact between the ground and your body. There are various layers that Krishna has explained. You have all this grass, then you have the skin of the deer or a tiger, then a woolen cloth, for example, and then sit on that. So why? Because just make yourself comfortable, and also avoid unnecessary vibrations that may be coming from that place. So that is the next criteria. Find a place, find a comfortable seat. You got to sit. Okay. Sit straight, sit erect. Okay. That is the other one. Okay. And then start thinking about dhyana. Okay. So before that, of course, Venkiji also reminded us that we have to control our sensory inputs. One way of controlling sensory inputs is avoiding sensory contacts. The other way of doing it is doing some regulations, various vrata anushtana, various disciplines that have been given in the Vedas. Do those vratas, fasting and regulating your food, and all those things is a preparation to this stage. So that is also was reminded by Venki very beautifully. So then we sit straight, and then we start the meditation. So that is what Venki ji was alluding to, how that process is started. Then, of course, Venki ji also reminded us about the various conscious states of the jivas. So in the material plane, jivas have got only 3 states of consciousness. And of course, in the liberated state, it is the turiya state. So there is the Jagrati Avastha, There is the Swapna Avastha, there is the Sushupti Avastha or the Nidra Avastha as it's called. And Venkiji beautifully showed those cartoons to remind us that in the Jagrata Avastha, the external sensory organs are very active. Okay, that is that harsh situation of Katha Upanishad. Whereas in the dream state, the external world contact is gone, but the mind is still very active. And we are still, the jiva is experiencing what is happening in the mind. And then in the Nidra Avastha or the Sushupti Avastha, the mind also is not operational. We are in the deep sleep, the dreamless state, the dreamless sleep as it's called. We are in the deep sleep. That was described by Venkiji and discussed the Nidra Avastha. What is the state of the jivas in that? And then he very beautifully reminded us, so what is the Samadhi state then? Okay. So what is happening in the Samadhi state? And he spoke about the Samadhi Avastha, Asamprajnata Samadhi, where the mind is still. Okay. When the mind is completely blanked and is very still, then there is a possibility that we might have a darshana of our Antaryamin. Of course, it is not a given. You need to have a divine grace for that to happen. Okay. So that is where we stop the whole process, starting from Shravana, Manana, and Dhyana, which is prerequisite for Aparoksha Jnana. So I'm going to close at that point. Suresh, over to you.
Thanks, Madhuji. So with that, GBG, if you could please share your slides and take it forward, please.
So it says sharing is not turned on.
One sec.
I think.
Video co-host, it should work.
No. Yeah, now it's coming. Okay, you can see the slides now.
Yes, DVG.
Okay, great. So, first of all, Sri Gurubhyo Namaha, Apadamauli Paryantam, Gurunam Akritim Smaret, Tena Vignaha Pranashyanti, Siddhim Chitamanoratah, Sri Gurubhyo Namaha, my fellow devotees and Adhyatma Bandhus. So today we are, digging a little deeper into this dhyana or the meditation part. And then, so I was supposed to cover from the shlokas 24 to 32, but then see, Sureshji cleverly pointed out it will be from 10 to 32, which is true, because whenever we do Gita, we have to go back and forth to get the context right. If you look at any one shloka by itself, right, it may not give us the full intended meaning or the intended message. So to appropriately to construe the context, so we may have to go back and forth. It is with that, probably Sureshji mentioned that I would be probably going back all the way to the 10th verse and then kind of, going back and forth. So, but we will use the kind of verses as the thought process, and that will be from 24 to 32. Within that one, I saw some three divisions. 24 to the first three shlokas, they convey about how to do dhyana. More in terms of how to do dhyana, it is about staying in dhyana. There is then a subtle difference, and then I will tell you at the end. Then after when you are successful in doing dhyana, and then what would be the result of it? What would be the reward out of that? So again, Krishna summarizes that one in about three shlokas. And then he also deals with, at the end, what would be the state of a mature dhyana yogi or a yoga ruda that Sureshji pointed out, right? It is somebody who has mastered, but then it is basically looking at, it basically is also an aproksha jnani. So aproksha jnani lakshanas have been dealt with it before, but from a dhyana perspective, there will be another facet to the aproksha jnani, and that Krishna talks about it in those four slokas. So we will look at those things again. So this is in a kind of a framework of these set of shlokas with which the message is conveyed. Okay, so what we will do is now we will look at individual shlokas and then look at it go little deeper into that one, and then it comes to what the message is. Okay, so the first shloka goes like this: Sankalpa Prabhavan Kaman Tattva Sarvan Asheshataha Manasya Indriya Gramam Vinimya Samantataha. So it's saying that it's basically like a Sankalpa Prabhavan Kaman. When we do Sankalpa, right, we always say that it is for that with a goal or an objective or a purpose in mind. So I am doing this karma karishye. So I am doing the sankalpa and then start doing the karma, or in that way. So here in this context, it's saying that it is basically this is the sankalpa becomes the driving force, right, to which we do the karma. So it says just right at that stage itself, right at the sankalpa stage itself, you want to kind of burn it off, right? You want to kind of renounce that. That is what it kind of meant in here. Because later on we will see the desire itself, it will be kind of difficult to give up, because that forms the basic driving force without which we can't function. So even seeking moksha is a form of desire anyway, right? So it is about when we say sankalpa prabhavan kaman, so that is with respect to any material foods. And then basically like kamya karma. So that has to be given up. That is what it is kind of re-emphasized in here. Okay, so not only that, and then manasya, I mean, it's also say Sankalpa Prabhavan Kaman Tattva Sarvan Asheshataha. So here we are also saying that Sarvan and Asheshataha. Sarvan means all. Asheshataha means without any residue. So hey, aren't they kind of one and the same? Is somewhat redundant. Actually, the Acharya further says that it is basically when say Sarvan, yeah, you have to give up all desires. Then Asheshataha means that is within each desire you completely give up. So all, and then within each there will be again a spectrum about maybe there will be a 10% residue or whatever. It's then no. Within each desire also, every residue also has to be given up. So hence the kind of repetition of the synonymical word, Sarvan and Asheshataha. So these are some of the beauty of what Krishna means. Another one. Then it's Aneva Indriya Gramyam, right? And then restraining the senses becomes even more important, right? Another one. And then Viniyamya Samantataha. Viniyamya means bringing under control. Samantataha means it says basically from all directions. So Madhuji just talked about this charioteer and then horse in the Katha Upanishad. Same thing in here, right? That had to be reined in to be controlled. So why it is again said in here, because this is very, even during the kind of meditation, the yogi has to make sure that all of these things are still kept under control and they are not seeping in. Okay, this has to be always at all times in the part of the jnana yoga. All these things have to be controlled. So then the next slide will be yato yato nischarati manaschanchalamastiram tatastato niyamaitat atmanyeva vasham nayet. I don't know whether I skipped one more slide or whatever. Sorry, I skipped a slide. So the next one will be Shanai Shanai Uparamet Buddhya Dhriti Grihitaya Atma Samstamana Kritva Na Kinchitapi Chintayet. So Krishna again talks about how to kind of stay in dhyana, how to, what is again the mechanisms of doing dhyana. First of all, he says, Shanai Shanai Uparamet. He says slowly and steadily, even though Shanai Shanai is repeated, but one is slow, the other one is steady, right? So slowly and steadily, one has to withdraw from the Vishaya, right? Uparamet, one has to withdraw from the Vishaya and then focus inward. And then it's also talk about that alone is not enough, because Madhuji talked about this kind of charioteer and then the chariot. So it is a buddhi who is kind of giving. He is the charioteer. He is the determiner. That's the where does the manas and the indriyas grow. Okay, so buddhi plays a very important part. So so buddhi, that is why dhriti, uh, buddhi, grihi means it has to have a resolution, a firm resolution. Okay, I'm going to do only dhyana. I'm not going to look anywhere else. So the buddhi with the griti, one has to make the decision. It is a buddhi that makes the decision and controls the mind. And then shanai uparamed. So it is slowly withdraws from other ones and focuses on this one. So the buddhi or the intellect becomes in here, and then Atma Samstam Manaha. Here Atma means Paramatma here. So Manaha, Atma Samstam. So put your mind in God on that one. And more importantly, Kinchitapi na chintaye. So don't think about anything else. So that if you want to focus on God, then you cannot be thinking about anything else. Otherwise, that is not a correct jhana. So that is why. So here the important of so the one other thing was when Shanai means Krishna already gives us a hint, saying that hey, this is a slow and steady process. No one should expect like all in kind of one janma or just like that. We would be ready to kind of to start doing dhyana and then get approksha. He already cautions us. It is a slow and steady process. Recall this kind of rabbit and turtle, right? Rabbit run fast, accomplish something, and then gets distracted, and then does all kinds of stuff, and then starts running again, and then gets distracted. No, that is not how one progresses. It is like a turtle with a steady goal in mind, and not getting distracted or whatever, but keep on making progress, slow and steadily, and kind of one day is going to kind of cross the line, and then kind of and then even they win the race. So this meditative process is also like that. It is slow and steady, and it's going to take time. It's going to want it, so that means one has to be ready. So it has to have that commitment. That's where the buddhi comes, that resolution comes, that I'm going to do it and then stay with it. It's going to take time. One has to have the patience. In other shlokas also, Krishna clearly says, Aneka Janma Samsiddhaha, that right in the same chapter at the kind of very end, he's saying that he's going to take many janmas to have the siddhi of this dhyana. So we have to be ready for that. Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapatyate. So even the jnanis, they take a lot of janmas and then thinking about him and other words. So with all the thing and everything, put them into context. This is a slow process, but one has to be steady with it. Okay, so that is the reality of this one. That's why it's getting a moksha is not a joke. So it is such a difficult thing and kind of coveted thing. One has to put this extraordinary effort to kind of get there. And then we also talked about this kind of buddhi being that basically gives the resolution and then the focus. And then you can recollect that another Gita verse, which is very similar to the Katha Upanishad verse that Motherji talked about. Indriyani paranyahu, indriyebhya paramana, manasastu parabuddhi. So buddhi is over, he is the controller of the manas, and hence the buddhi plays a very important part. And that is brought out in the sloka. So again, we said that in this context, the Atma Shabda can denote body, mind, buddhi. We saw that before. And then Jiva, and then Paramatma. So it can mean so many things. One has to be careful in making the appropriate meaning, given the context. So in this one, fix the manas. Where are you going to fix the manas, right? And then not anything else. It has to be in kind of Paramatma only, right? Na kinchitapi na chintayet. So, na kinchitapi chintayet. So, it should not be meaning thinking about anything else. So, that is also becoming important if one has to kind of become single focus and single mindedness. Another thought continues is yato nischarati manaschanchala astiram tataistato niyamyaitat atmanyeva vasham naye. So, yato means it's like yatra. wherever the mind wanders. So right there, one has to hold it and then bring it back. Because my mind, by nature, which will be, is achalam. It's not going to be steady. Astiram, right? It is not fixed. So it's going to go everywhere. So it is so wherever it goes, right there, you have to kind of hold it and bring it back, right? And then if you kind of say that we bring it back and then do what? Then put it back into the Paramatma again. That's why you have to put it back on the focus back on the Paramatma. So here both things are pointed out. That is, one is the positive, one is the negative aspect. That means stop going anywhere else, right? And especially to Indriyas. And then the positive aspect is if you kind of say that stop doing something, that is not enough. Then still mind being what it is, it has to do something. It has to give something for it to do. So the positive thing is focus on God. So give another job for it, then it will stay, right? So that is why it is both are kind of comes to in here, right? And then it's also said that wouldn't it be like a chanchalam would have been enough? Why astiram, right? Both are kind of synonymical word. Uh, Again, Padmanabhacharya says that he construes chanchalam as intrinsically the mind is its basic characteristic is like this. So he wants a kind of emphasis on that one. And then astiram means unsteadiness, or it when something else is kind of shown, it gets easily kind of attracted toward that one. So that is the nature of the mind. And then so it has to be controlled from both ends, and hence both are used in here. And again, in this context also, Atma should be only Paramatma only in this one. So these are the three slokas that talked about how to do dhyana more in terms of staying dhyana. Then we look at, again, this is why they're kind of going back. We looked at slokas 10 through 17, and then we had to ask ourselves, why didn't Krishna put this one along with it? Because he talked about preparing, he talked about how to do dhyana in those slokas, right? So, prasannatma vigadapi, brahmacharya vrate sthitaha, manay samyamya, machitto yukta asita matparaha. Isn't it something very similar to like what we are seeing in here also, right? And yajnanevam sadatmanam and all those things. Only thing is, with respect to like when he talked about 10 through 17, what was done before and after 10 through 17. So he was talking about controlling buddhi first. And then after 17, he's going to talk about how the state of dhyana will be. And then 10 through 17 is basically after having controlled the mind, how one prepares for dhyana. So that is where the context wise, there are some slight differences. So he talks about ekaki rahasi sthitaha, find the kind of, like an isolated place and all those things. All these things, 10 to 17 is discussed in the context of preparing dhyana. And then in the dhyana, how it will be. That is when Venkatesh was talked about last time, in the dhyana state, how it will be like that. That is when he experiences atindriya, it is like it is a pleasure or happiness coming from atindriya, and then it is still buddhi grahyam. So that is what is happening in the kind of meditative state. So he talked about that one. Then what is this sloka is? This sloka, if you carefully look at it, shanai shanai uparamet, and then yato yato nischarati means he is trying to do dhyana, but is not quite able to kind of sustain it. So this is more about some another upaya that Krishna talked about. Hey, you have made yourself preparation, you're trying to do dhyana and all those things, but then you're not able to sustain it. But then these are some other additional upaya that Krishna shows about. How do you sustain dhyana and then keep at it for a longer time? So there is a context wise, I saw a little difference because any shastra, there cannot be an unnecessary repetition. If there is an unnecessary repetition, it is a dosha. So we have to see that if it is repeated, then we have to ask, is it repeated because Krishna wants to make sure that the message gets it across, right? Or are there any other context or newness in this one in the second time compared to the prior time. So he also gives us some kind of challenge for us, just to not like monotonously kind of start reading and Gita. We have to pause and try to ask ourselves, hey, what is the difference in here? So this gives us some challenge for our own manana. So by kind of juxtaposing the verses differently, so it gives us additional challenge, and then these are enjoyable ones. So then the next stage is, okay, so we have now sustained the dhyana and then been successful at it. What is the result of it? So prasanta manasam hyenam yoginam sukham uttamam. So it says uttama sukham is that yogi is, comes to that yogi who is able to kind of, do this dhyana completely. Because one of the other thing is also prashanta manasam hyenam. So his mind also becomes very calm and quiet and all those things, and subdue it totally, and then able to experience that sukhamuttamam, right? And then also, how is he able to do that? Because upaiti santa rajasham. So rajas is a very activity, right? And other ones on passion, and that is upaiti, that is controlled. And then moreover, and then akalmasham, right? Kalmasham means sin. Akalmasham doesn't have, he's free from sins and everything, is pure. Another one, such person would be able to see everything in God. Brahma Bhutam. So that is what it means, meaning one person is able to see the God in anything, any creation, another one. So that is the kind of outcome or the kind of result of such a yoga, of such a deep meditation. So another one is another yujnanevam sadatmanam yogi vigata kalmashaha sukena brahma sansparsham atyantam sukhamashnute. Looks very similar to the prior verse, right? In that one also, but then there are some few subtleties, right? So it is more, one of the thing is meditating constantly on God, sadatmanam, right? That is new. So properly talked about in the previous one, talked about meditation, but here the one of the important one is much longer time, constantly, right? Sadatmanam. And then Vigata Kalmashaha. Last time also we also talked about Kalmasham, right? Akalmasham. It is, Vigata Kalmashaha, same. That is, it's, see here, that repetition is kind of worth it, saying that that is really, really important. Okay. So here it is not a dosha to repeat the same thing because it is really important. Then it is other one. And then Sukhena Brahma Sansparsham, right? Here it is Atyantam Sukhamashnute. So here you can see Sukhena Atyantam Sukhamashnute. That is, this is the one that because he is constantly in touch with Brahman, right? Or in the deep meditation of Brahman, right? Brahma Sansparsham. Because of that, he is able to get Sukhena Atyantam Sukhamashnute. Here, it would have been enough to say Atyantam Sukhamashnute, right? Sukham is there, but then you want to say Atyantam Sukham. It is something that is, it is beyond anything else, right? It is like a superlative, the most superlative. Atyantam Sukhamashnute would have been enough. Why you say Sukhena again? Sukhena Atyantam Sukhamashnute. Sukha comes repeated 2 times, right? Why would Krishna do that way? So that is why it's kind of important to kind of interpret what is Sukhena means. So here again, Padmanabhacharya says that Sukhena means, it is basically easily. See, that is also important because remember, we are now talking about somebody who has completed the kind of dhyana, right? And then what would be the result and what is the reward of that one and other ones. So one had completed means he had already taken enormous effort, and then doing in the process of trying to get ready and then stay in dhyana, he has become an expert. In other words, this Aruraksha has become an yoga roda. So because he has become yoga roda, right? He has become rudi in doing yoga. So it will be easy for him. That is what it means. That is to show that He has now attained that one. That's why the Sukhena is kind of kept in here. Sukhena means it is he's able to get to that state easily. And then he gets that one Sukham also somewhat easily compared to the Mahaprayatna that he has to do before. Right? So that is the difference in here. So again, let us go back and then kind of look at it, right? And then other ones. So these are some of the shlokas that Venkatesh would have covered it last time. This is talking about like a dhyana that, where Madhuji kind of summarized it just early. So what is the difference between Nidra Avastha and then what is the difference between Asamprajna Samadhi, Prajnana Samadhi and all those things. So that is also like talking about dhyana in that one. So that is, yes, that is dhyana for sure. But then here we are talking about what is the result of that one. So there also it is talking about Sukhamatyantikam, right? And then he is also very, that one. But then that is about when I just started doing dhyana, right? So I want to say the kind of progression is when Krishna introduced Aruraksha, who is about, who want to kind of accomplish this jnana yoga, who is the seeker at that point. How does he become seer, right? It is going through the preparation, staying in the, trying to do dhyana, trying to stay in dhyana, and then completes it. And then does it again and again, and then becomes an expert. Then becomes, kind of yoga ruda. So to me, that 18 to 23 is about an Aruraksha trying to do dhyana in the initial stage. But in the initial stage itself, he gets this Atyantikam Sukham, right? Adyantikam Sukham itself, that is Buddhi Grahyam, right? He is able to kind of recognize that one, even with a little bit of effort, because that is important, because that is what incentivizes one to stay in dhyana or continue to do dhyana like a next time, right? So it is like giving a carrot right in the beginning. That way, people will be motivated to do the same thing again and again. So they will come for it again. So to me, it was for a kind of Aruraksha who is trying to do dhyana, and that is the state. The one that is we talked about now, Prasantamanasami, Yoginam, Sukhamuttamam, and everything, we now talked about somebody who has now become a kind of expert, and what would be reward for those kind of people. So in that way, if we look at it, then it is not a repetition. So I was able, it is kind of challenging ourselves. Why would Krishna wants to convey the same message again? There has to be something hidden. So to me, it appeared that could be the hidden message, but we can open it up for discussion later as to how others also look at it. So then the last four slokas talks about this lakshana of this yoga rudha. So one of the things that he is talking about is sarvabhutastam atmanam sarvabhutani chatmani ikshate yoga yuktatma sarvatra samadarshanaha. So he's basically getting one of the key thing was able to become samadarshana, right? In that way. So yoga yuktatma. See, that's what he say. Yoga yuktatma, many he has become already a trained expert. That is yoga yuktatma. And then he is now sees ikshate sarvatra samadarshanaha. So he is able to see this sameness everywhere. Sameness means that God is same in kind of everyone. And then sarva bhutani chatmani. And he is able to see God in all the bhuta. Bhuta means it's both chetana and achetana, right? Everywhere. And then sarva bhutastam atmanam. And then he will be able to see all, sarva bhutani chatmani, so all the living beings in God. And then the other one is God in all living beings. Sorry, can I change it? So the same thought continue little bit more in the next one. Yoma pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mayi pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sachame na pranashyati. So the kind of the first verse or the kind of prior verse, we just talked about Sarva Bhutani Cha Atmani, right? Sarva Bhutastam Atmanam and all those things. So here the Atma Shabda was used. It is in the third phase, right? So, but then Krishna wants to make it clear. Hey, by the way, that Atma and me, they're all one and the same, and there is no binna there. So he wants to make sure that he is the same as that Atma. So he kind of further clarifies in kind of verse 30 on that one, and then gives an also in kind of addition gives some more promise, saying that for that yogi who has kind of trained very well in that one, for him, tasyaham na pranashyami. So aham na pranashyami. I'm not, I'm not lost to him, nor he is lost to me. Sachame na pranashyati. So I'm not lost to him, and he's not lost in me. So I'm not going to give up on him. So that is a promise that he gives. And then about we had seen this, seeing the same God in everyone in the kind of prayer slokas also, and there are so many slokas also that comes, and then Shureshji is going to kind of recap it again. One other thing that we saw was that Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, Brahmane, Gavi, Hastini, Suniche, Vasapakecha, Panditaha, Samadarshanaha. So the Pandita Samadarshana means it is he is able to these Panditas are able to see the same God in from Vidya Vinaya Sampanna, Brahmana, and then Gavi, go, and an elephant, and then a dog, and then all those people. So he's able to see the same God. That is Samadarshanaha. So here also, when we say the same word is kind of used in here, it is we have to kind of bring back that context, and then in here. So Sarvabhutastitam Yomam Bhajanti Ekatvam Astitaha, right? So here in this word, again it is so here that bhajati ekatvam atitaha. So that is a new one in here. So it is basically saying that one has to say that is only Bhagavan is only one, okay, and then there is nobody else, and then he is supreme. So it is on that one has to meditate, because it is important what one meditates upon. Because if they meditate on something that is not true or that is against Shastra and everything, then this kind of phala will not will not come. It will be a mere waste of time. So what is emphasized is what is being meditated upon. So that is a newness in here. And then of course what has to be meditated upon is bhajati ekatvam astitaha. So that it has to be meditated on that one. And that then he gives a further promise. Previously he said that I'm not lost to them and he's not lost in me. Lost is okay, meaning saying that okay, it could be it could be like okay, I'm not going to give up on you or whatever. But then he goes one step further in that one, and he says that such yogi mayi vartate, and sarvata vartamanopi. So that is an important one. So Mayi Vartate means now is going to be with me all the time. He's going to kind of reside in me. Okay, so those kind of people are going to be so close to me that it's not that I'm going to be stay far away and then say that I'm not lost to you. So he kind of gives that even closeness. And the other one he also gives this sarvata vartamanopi. So that is another interesting word. Here sarvata meaning some a yogi who is able to, who is capable, and who is able to do these jhana, who is an advanced one. Sometimes even these people could be even devatas. Sometimes even they make mistake due to prarabdha vasha, right? But it could be only for a very short time. So even that, but Lord says that I'm not going to kind of mind that. I'm going to kind of ignore that, because he's going to come back to me again and then do this one. And he gives a further assurance that I'm not going to give up on, even on those people who stray momentarily and then come back. So apichet suduracharaha bhajate mam ananyavak sadareva samantavyaha samyak vyavasito saha. So it's a samyak vyavasito saha, when he knows who I am and he knows that he can come back and do the dhyana again. For those people, even then when they made some small mistakes, I'm going to kind of forgive them and they're not minded. And then I will still be kind of looking after them. So those are all the assurances that that Bhagavan gives for those advanced yogis. So the kind of further thought continues. So this is the last one. Atmaupamyena sarvatra samam pashyati yorjana sukam va yadi va dukkam sayogi paramo mataha. So he is saying sayogi paramo mataha. So that yogi is a parama mataha. I mean, mataha means it is in my opinion. So he is the best of the yogis. He's good. Who, what are the qualities? Who sees the same God in all be sarvatra samam pashyati. And one step further, because that is said before. Now he adds another one. So come va yadi va dukkam atmaupamyena. So even for if it is somebody else or undergoing some misery or even happiness, a yogi thinks that, okay, hey, it is happening to me. So even others' load of happiness and everything, he takes it upon saying it is my. So there is an underlying thing is, so it is another uttama state for the yogi is even this abhimana tyaga. It is even that they are able to do tyaga. It is mine, those things. So once that thing goes, then he sees whatever that is happening, all the whole consciousness, everything, he becomes part of that. Part of that means that same he's when somebody feels sad, he also starts feel sad and everything. So it is that kind of state can come only when the abhimana of that person has totally gone and vanished. Because that is an important state for a true bhakta, so that he becomes only God conscious and sees God everywhere and everything sees as an act of God. Such is the state of that an advanced yogi, right? And then to show that even Krishna also lived as an example to that one, right? So he says to Duryodhana, hey, Pandava's enemy is my enemy because his sorrow is my sorrow, and Pandava's their friend is my friend. To show that Krishna also kind of led through, he kind of as an example of how that yogi will look like, and then he also shares that. So that brings me to kind of this last slide. So again, we ask, hey, are we seeing some repetition in here? Yes, there are some slokas that are very close. That whatever that we see in here, jitatmanaha prasantasya paramatma samahitaha, right? Sitorsaka dukeshu tata manapamanayoho. So again, very similar sounding verses. Then we ask, hey, what's the difference? Right? Why is he kind of saying the same thing again? Okay, so there again, we have to kind of go into the context. When did he say the sloka 7, 8, 9? It is right after then Krishna talked about somebody who is able to control the mind. And he says that, hey, you do a mind control and everything, good things happen to you, just to kind of reinforce that that's important. But then he really goes to he skips several things and then talks about the end state. They have to quickly to say that, hey, there is a benefit if you do this. So he shows the benefit quickly, but then he had skipped over many things. But then what he skipped over is after mind control, you have to do dhyana. And then he comes back to it and then says, and then lays that emphasis on one has to do mind control plus dhyana, and then how that state will kind of look like. So this is again somewhat recap of the previous one, but then with some more clarity and then further emphasis. So in that way, there is no repetition. One can say that Krishna didn't repeat. So with that, I conclude My thoughts on this, again, I thank you all for listening to me and then giving me an opportunity to do some kinchit manana and then share my thoughts with you. Krishna Arpanamastu.
Thank you, GVG. If you could stop sharing, then yeah, thank you. So now we will pick up from where GVG left, wherein in the very last verse, GVG was saying, use yourself as an example and samam pasya. I mean, you should be able to see sameness. So the question that came to my mind is, what is this doctrine of samatva? Krishna keeps talking about this samatvam, samadarshinaha. So I just went back and looked at some of the verses where the word sama comes. Around 15 verses where the word sama comes, and it gives the meanings such as being unperturbed, being equanimous, being content and above dualities, not swayed by material attraction, samloštashma kanchana, samabuddhir vishishyate, employing impartial intellect. So in many different contexts, the word sama keeps coming. And now currently the idea is, I mean, as GVG very rightly said, repetition never occurs. If we think that something is being repeated, it is that we still need to understand it that much more clearly. So each in its context is giving a very different kind of a meaning. But currently in the context of dhyana yoga, when Krishna is talking of samatvam, what is the meaning that one can actually get out of it was the intent in trying to put the things this way. And especially when he said, samam pashyati yorjuna, I mean, you start experiencing the joys and sorrows of your brethren, and you remain same towards your friends who, so there are enough such examples. So therefore, just to pause back and ask this question about who is this Krishna is preaching all of this, to whom? Does this apply only to somebody in the monastic order or the sannyasis? Or does it apply to all of us who are living within this samsara? Very clearly, Krishna has clarified it. We talked about it last time. There's no teaching of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita which is solely applicable only to the fourth order of the sannyasis, the fourth order. It is Krishna is telling Arjuna, who is there to go and fight a war. The next question is what should one be doing? One way to get all of this is not do anything. I mean, there's no sensory, there's no input, there is no output, and therefore there is sameness. But that's not what Krishna is saying. He's made it very, very clear that being still is impossible. You have to be in the midst of everything and still be able to do it. And if you ask the question of how do we get to doing it? Well, one thing was, just drain your mind. I mean, there's nothing there, just it's all, nothing exists. There are all some bubbles that have come together and this fictitious samsara is there. It's going to dissipate one day. So everything is the same. But emptying your mind is, I don't know. I mean, practically, I don't think that's possible. Even if it is, we can't run away from the reality of our day-to-day lives. So it is for us to be within this samsara and then deal with the things that we experience day in and day out, and then be able to achieve this samatva. So having dealt with that and coming back to what is this samatvam that Krishna is talking about, a few questions is it sameness? Is Krishna is saying that everything is the same and you must be able to experience everything to be the same? Well, the question that comes there is, our very foundation, our essence of learning is through perception, differentiation, and comparison. Even when we talk of the 9 tenets, we say tattvato bhedaha, I mean bhinnaha. So fundamentally things are different. No two things are ever the same. If that is the case, what is the samatvam in the context of sameness that Krishna is talking about? Is it stability? Is a stability in the sense that staticity? Is it ever possible that everything is so stable that nothing ever changes? Absolutely no, because Krishna has said Ashwatham Prahuravem. If there's nothing static here, everything is fundamentally moving. And if you're talking about stability, it has to be in some other context. Then is it equality? Krishna himself doesn't treat everybody equally. So it cannot be just mere equality that Krishna is talking about. So then maybe the question came was, is it equilibrium that Krishna is talking about? More so this mental equilibrium. Maybe, if so, then the question comes is it static equilibrium or is it dynamic equilibrium that Krishna is talking about? Going a little further into it, it needs to be dynamic is where I ended up, because life is going to throw us different things. And we have said it is ever changing. And we need to be able to, in a state of, to reach a state of dynamic equilibrium. So how do we do that? So if we just look at this, there is the Brahman, there is the Jiva, there's a Linga Sharira, Niruddha Sharira, and Sthula Sharira. It's all very stable, very dynamic. Our own relationship with the Brahman is extremely dynamic. One day we surrender to him, we praise him. When good things happen to us, next day we are cursing him, saying that why on earth am I to suffer? And of course, the external world that we perceive through the Sthula Sharira is ever dynamic. So maybe when Krishna is saying samatvam, he's saying that the day I'm able to see the relationship to the external world exactly as I establish a relationship towards my internal world, that is, as I see Brahman, that samatvam, if I can reach, and that is where, and the path towards that is stabilizing this relationship between Jiva and Brahman. The more stable this relationship becomes, the more stable the relationship in the external facing world becomes. And then maybe we will be able to achieve the state of samatvam that GVG just talked about in the last shloka, and of course, while summarizing the other instances. And just to remind ourselves, and the person who reaches such a state of samatvam, Krishna had already described while describing Sitav Prajna, saying, Yanisha Sarva Bhutanam Tasyam Jagarti Sayami. So this person is somebody who is, who is equimanus, who is able to see everything from a very, very different point of view than what we are generally used to. Padmanacharya crystallizes this further and saying that, and for this to be doing, what Krishna is perhaps talking about is basically having a very, very steady mind. And this steady mind, he breaks it up into two different qualities. One is to know God, that God is equal. He's equally powerful and infinite in all forms and manifestations, in the smallest and the biggest objects. That itself is challenging. And then, of course, the other aspect is to extend the golden rule of fellowship to all brethren. And that's what GVG was referring to in the last verse that he was talking about. And for this, one requires the mind to be keen and steady, and also without passion and prejudice. And we will reach a state of mental balance, or perhaps the samatvam. So if that's how perhaps it is crystallizing, here is our representative Arjuna. Let's just remember, he came into the battlefield all prepared, with all ego, and then after seeing what he wanted to see, he says, no, Krishna, Nayotsaiti Govindam, I'm not going to fight. And now at the culmination of the entire sadhana mechanisms, when Krishna is summarizing and talking about the state of mind that one should be to be able to achieve And here is a friend again who says, Aham na pashyami. Krishna, I don't think this is possible. If mental balance is an absolute foundation for this yoga, mind is vagabond, and I don't think this is possible. And there, in the 630 to 33, he says, Yoyam yogatvaya proktaha, that the yoga that you are teaching, samyena madhusudana, about this samyatvam, about this yoga, I don't think it is possible. A little bit very interesting here. If we look at the meaning of the word Madhusudana, this is the third time Arjuna is addressing as Madhusudana. Madhusudana means somebody who provides joy to the sattvika jivas. Madhu also means material happiness or kama. Kaitavhari also means karma. Sudana is destroyer, destroyed. So it was Krishna in Hayagriva Avatara who had killed Madhu and Kaitava, and therefore also is known as Madhusudana for destroying Kama and Karma, and for destroying these two demons, Madhu and Kaitaba, who now currently are there as Hamsa and Dibaka of Salva, and further Krishna does kill both of them as well. So what is Arjuna saying? Arjuna is saying of the two things that we just reduced, one, which is to see God as the same, perhaps I'm getting it somewhere because he's addressing him as Madhusudana. See, it was in Hayagriva Avatara that you killed these two. I know that. Now you are standing in front of me as Krishna, but I'll still call you as Madhusudana, just to tell you that I know you are the same. Arjuna is Aparoksha Jnani. But then you just said I should view everybody else just like me. Now let's take this a little further. I would never want to harm myself, which means that I should not harm anybody else because I should see everybody else as myself. But look at the contrast here. You killed Madhu and Kaitava, you killed Kamsa, and you say you are here to destroy. That's one of the purposes of your Krishna Avatara. And then not only that, you are my charioteer and you are urging me to fight and kill people. Oh, I think I know why you're doing that. And that's the reason again I am calling you as Madhusudana, because you provide only joy to the Sattvika Jivas. It's not to everybody else. So maybe I'm getting this. But then the other thing is about being able to extend the golden rule of fellowship to all brethren. Really? You know, practically, we cannot even treat each one of our children equally. There's a favorite, there's not so a favorite or whatever. What are you talking about treating the entire brethren equally? That, Krishna, I don't think is possible because the mind is wavering, and this requires a mind that is, stable and sthira. Further, Arjuna adds, Chanchalam me mana Krishna. It's not just that it's Chanchala, he uses two more words here. He says it is Balavat and it is Pramati. This, if we look at Madhuji's picture about the chariot, so the reins and the horses, these reins, Krishna, they are so powerful, they actually cook my brain. The mind overpowers and takes control, like, churning the buttermilk. And that's the state that this mind does, and that's what we experience. And we try to control it, we try to bring it back, we try to, say that no, the intellect tries to, get us back into the track, but this mind overpowers us and takes total control. And therefore, control is not just dushkrutam. It's not just possible. It is sudushkrutam. It's totally impossible. You know how it is? It is like going and attempting to capture wind. So that it's as impossible as trying to going and capture wind and put it into my pocket and bring. It's as impossible as that. And he calls Krishna, and he uses the word Krishna here. And this is the fifth time that Arjuna has used the word Krishna. He's saying and Krishna, and he's the one who attracts. And as Talvakar Upanishad says, this mind keeps wavering. All of this is due to him in Aniruddha form. So Krishna, whatever this is happening is because of you. You are the one who is doing it. And maybe there is a sense here when Arjuna is saying, Krishna, that unless you, as the Antaryamin of the Manobhimami Rudra, is pleased, it will be only if you are pleased in this form, and if the Manobhimani Rudra is pleased, it becomes Sukaram. Else, it is Dushkaram. And that's what Arjuna is saying. And therefore, I don't think it is possible. Krishna responds. He says, Asamshayam. Yes, you're right. Absolutely no doubt. Mahabhavo. And this is the seventh time that Krishna is actually calling Arjuna as Mahabhavo. Mahabhavo, we know, is somebody who is Balavan, who is strength, who's full of physical strength. Mahabhava also means, we have seen in Purusha Sukta, Bahu Rajanyakrita, those that have come from the Bahu of Bhagwan, that is the Kshatriyas. And Indra, Krishna, Arjuna, you are yourself, Indra, you are the Abhimani Devata of mind as well. So basically what Krishna is trying to perhaps say here is, Mahabhava, you are very strong physically, but my friend, being strong enough to control the mind is a different matter. So Asamshayami Mahabhavo is, yes, it's different, it's difficult. And then, but however, you are Kaunteya, you are the son of Kunti, a living example of somebody, who was able to lead an example of controlled mind, somebody who lived an ascetic life in her prime youth. The day she was able to possess all the luxuries of being a Rajmata, she said, no, I am giving this up and I go back to the forest. So you are son of such a great accomplisher, Arjuna. Therefore, though it is extremely difficult, he uses the word durnigraham here. Nigrahitam avashyam durnigraham. So it's impossible is what's in one sense, but it also means dukkena nigrahintu shakyam durnigraham. So it is still possible, but it is a long and tedious path. And how is it possible? There are two things which Krishna talks about. Abhyasena, vairagyena. Abhyasena, by continuous practice. It's not repetition for the mere repetition. It is, as Madhuji was very nicely telling us, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. If we keep doing Abhyasa and head towards Vairagya, which is giving up the material aspects and heading towards the Jnana, Bhakti and Vairagya, this is possible. However, Krishna puts one condition. He says, Asamyat Atma and Vashya Atmana. He says two things here. One, yes, it is possible. And for those who can actually make it possible, not just temporarily, but permanently withdraw from all that is material and, withdraw from almost everything else except for some as we had seen is Vishnu Vachakam, Samyat. So if one is able to withdraw totally from the material aspects and focus his or her mind and get control of it, then in my opinion, Krishna says this is not an impossible task. However, so if one is not then it is an impossible task. But if one has control over the mind, and he uses the word tu here, as he had used samyat, permanently, here he is saying tu here, which says it's not just being controlled, but there's another condition over and above just controlling one's mind. It is to be able to surrender oneself to the Lord. If one does that, having controlled the mind by consistent practice of whatever has been taught thus far, it is possible. So Krishna sets a very, very high bar here. He says that if you cannot control your mind and if you cannot retreat from the material aspects, my definitive opinion is it's impossible. But if you can, well, there is a possibility. This is where Arjuna, on behalf of all of us, says that this is an extremely high bar. I mean, and he says, completely control, have total control of it. And that's when Arjuna says, the way I thought about it, let's just step back for a minute. Let's try and see, Krishna, what is it that you're going to tell us? What is it that you're telling us? One thing you said is, if we don't have enough Shraddha, we don't believe in you, if we don't accept what you are saying, there is no hope. Yes, no discussions on that part of it. We accept it. However, let's take the case of somebody who has Shraddha, who believes in you, who wants to make progress. So what happens? This person, in the course of the life, gets educated, lives his life, do the Purusharthas, earns money, cares, and we're talking of Sattvika Jivas here who have Shraddha, does something good, and then, does some purposeful assigned activities, and then perhaps being a Nitya Samsari, whatever, in any which way, goes back, dies, takes birth again. Well, there is a steady, simple life that is happening. However, what happens if we meet some, maybe this, actually takes us towards, gets us a little more elevated. Maybe that's the progress that naturally happens. However, if somebody, in deep slumber gets a call to say that, hey, there's somebody like Madhu, who teaches wonderfully. Do you want to attend and start attending Madhu's lectures? And then say, hey, wait, I was living in this plane. Maybe I need to elevate myself. There is a higher plane that I wasn't even aware of. If I can do that, maybe I can get rid of this cycle of this samsara, this relentless cycle of birth and death. So breaks the path and then, tries to define a new path of what Krishna has been telling us thus far. And this path, we know, is not easy. And it takes, many lifetimes. So maybe somewhere the person has progressed halfway through or just begun and death comes. Unfinished work. Or maybe he's progressed quite a bit, still doesn't get here. Krishna has very clearly told us, Aneka Janma. I mean, there are going to be many, many births that are needed for us to traverse this path fully. So this path, no, has not happened. So he was leading a simple life, enjoying everything, providing for family, doing some good. Now he stopped all of that. He started concentrating. He started reading. This is gone. He's not even being able to do his assigned duties properly. So whatever little swarga or whatever it is he was going to get for doing some of these works, that is also gone. So this person, Krishna, who is Satvik, who has started making progress, but is not able to get to any end, which he conveys to Krishna with the beautiful example of a single broken cloud, which, is neither able to provide shadow, which it should, or it could have had it remained in the group, nor is it able to provide rain and, gets dissipated somewhere. Is that going to be the fate of such a person? Is the question that Arjuna asks on behalf of all of us. Something, a question that I guess burns, our own thought processes every single time when we talk about this topic. So very beautifully, Arjuna asks this question. He says, Kam gatim gacchati Krishna. Where? Krishna, you are anyway the person who is going to, decide the fate of this person. Where are you going to take them? And then he says, Tadanvaya, and if there is anybody who can resolve this doubt of mine, undoubtedly, there's only one person who can dispel this doubt, and that is you, Krishna. And therefore, please resolve this doubt of mine. That's the question Arjuna poses to Krishna. Now, Krishna, the Lord that he is, affectionately talks to Arjuna and gives his answers. He calls him as Tata Partha. Tata means father. It's like when we colloquially, when we say in Kannada, I say when you're talking to a child, when you're talking to somebody who is very young and with a lot of affection, say Appa, Hangala. Then that's not the way, my dear friend. So it's with that affection that Krishna is talking to Arjuna, and he says he makes one wonderful statement here, and he says that no doer of good, whoever he may be, reaches an evil end. So if you are a doer of good, rest assured, just like I had told you while talking about karma yoga, even if you do a little bit of good effort, it only, progresses and multiplies. Similarly, no doer of good, whoever he may be, is ever going to reach an evil end. In fact, what happens to this person? He gets, he goes to the loka of punyakritam loka, the loka where, people who do a lot of, who do punya go there, and he stays there for a very, very a long time, enjoying the luxuries that these people, deserve, and then comes back onto the earth, comes back, takes rebirth, and is born into a house of into an environment such that there are no impediments in any which way to make further progress. Or he is perhaps born into an environment where there are already people who have made significant progress, thus the further path becomes extremely easy. This, of course, Krishna qualifies saying is very rare, but the fundamental message is, if you are a doer of good, no evil comes to you, and you will be born in an environment which has got much lesser impediments than what you have experienced. And this continuously goes on such that you reach your destination. Then, and then the next two verses, then the question is, yes, I am reborn, all right, but what is it? Do I have to start from the beginning? Is it reset? Then I go back and start from beginning just because the environment is conducive. Maybe I'll progress further, but is it that I have to go back and start from square one? But Krishna says, no, wherever you left, whatever was the stage that you had achieved in your previous birth, you start from there. That is already deposited in your account. That goes nowhere. You keep building upon it. And you building up, and the best part is you in your next births perhaps is drawn to it in such a way that that you may not even be aware. Involuntarily, perhaps you are drawn towards it. And an excellent example which Bananji gives is what he calls as Marjaraka Vishonyaya. It is like the kitten who are just born are blind, and it is the mother cat who actually gets hold of them by the scruff and takes them to safety. And that is exactly what happens to you if you are a doer of good. So Krishna here, as he's coming towards the end of sadhana, gives a complete, describes the all mercifulness of the Lord. And this, I thought, was wonderfully captured in Harikathamrita Sara, in Karuna Sandhi, where Jagannatha Dasaru says, it's in Kannada though, but I guess it's easy to interpret. He says, Malagi Paramadharadi Padalu. Parama Adaradi Padalu. That's, you have to be a doer in the keeping the mind, keeping Krishna in your mind and all else that we have talked about thus far. And if you do it while sleeping, he is actually sitting next to you, is listening, just like he was doing while Bhishmacharya was teaching Yudhishthira, the Vishnu Sahasranama. So Bhishmacharya was lying. Krishna was actually sitting there. If by chance you are sitting, kulitu padalu niluva. If you're sitting and then you are contemplating, then he's actually standing right behind you, as he was when Pundarika was sitting on the bank of the river and then serving his parents while contemplating on the Lord. But in case you are standing, nintare naliva. In case you're standing and praying, look at what happened to Dhruva and Prahlada. The Lord appears and with all his glory, nintare naliva. And if by chance you are, totally lost in contemplation of the Lord, like Narada Muni, then he becomes he becomes bhakta dina. He becomes ever attached to you and is never going to, and he surrenders himself unto you. And this Jagannatha Dasru says it's very easy if we understand what Krishna has been talking of. So the ever merciful, as we come towards the end of Sadhana Adhyaya, the ever mercifulness of the Lord becomes very apparent. And all that Krishna is saying is, do this unwavering, persistent, enthusiastic practice. And once you do this, once you keep doing this, you become a dhyana yogi. And then there comes a stage where your sins are all washed away. And then you becomes an aparoksha jnani. Having then being an aparoksha jnani, exhausting your prarabdha, you attain the highest abode. And Krishna then just gives two other things before he concludes the entire sadhana adhyaya, where he says, this yogi that I have talked about till now is much better than somebody who is doing mere penance. Mere penance, as Venkiji talked about it last time as well, doing, experiencing torture, doing fasting, just merely doing a lot of things and putting the body into a lot of trouble. No, and this yogin is much better than somebody who does that. This yogin is even greater than people who, just sit and learn and do nothing. When you have to actually experience and get into the state of dhyana, and then you will reap the rewards. And of course, this yogin is better than people who just merely go about doing things without knowing why they are doing or what they are doing. And therefore, Arjuna, become this dhyana yogi, get to this state of mind, and then you will fight the war as an yajna to me, and that will take you to the higher levels. And that is when you will attain moksha. And he says one more thing, saying that this while you are doing, concentration of the mind, control of the mind is all, maybe you will be able to do it, but then you have to worship me in full faith. And if you can do that and devote your mind totally towards me, then that kind of a yogi, in my opinion at least, Arjuna, is the best of yogis. Is how Krishna says and concludes the chapter of Sadhana Adhyaya. So where does this take us? So if we can just take a look back and say that we started the Sadhana Adhyaya to say that sadhana consists of two things. There is something that is externally manifest, and there is something that is internally manifest. So both have to evolve. It is not one either or. The life of work has to be based on the life of renunciation. And if we keep doing that, we ascend this ladder of being able to do action in a way that it becomes spontaneous, purposeful, assigned, and without any attachment. And for that we said it's important to, and we have said it enough times. And this kurvanneva iha karma, this is the only place we can do it. There is no other place. And this is the human birth we have got. and we better utilize this, do this, know who is in control, know who is the doer, and ascend this ladder such that we can do action in this way. But to do that, we need to make sure that our mind is in control. And then the way we can get to the control of mind is trying to make this relationship between Jiva and Brahma stable, steady, and keeps growing with totally surrendering to Brahma, such that this environment, which is so ever changing and dynamic, also becomes stable, and we attain a state of dispassion and dedication, which reinforces this path of getting to mind control. And in that state of mind, we become an adhikari. To become an aproksha jnani, of course, there is a missing piece here, which is the sadhyadhyaya, which is then understanding the God, understanding Krishna, his qualities, and then we become further aproksha jnani. And there, with the reassurance provided by Krishna that if you are on this path, I am there. I will make sure that you, in your repeated births, are born into more and more conducive environments, and you take this progress and you progress further. So that is how chapter 6 ends. Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Atma Sanyama Yogo Nama Shashtodhyayaha. Sri Krishna Arpanamastu. So that is what we wanted to share with regards to chapter 6 part B today. We'll pause here for a minute. I'll pause sharing and I will come back towards the end. But maybe Madhuji, GVG, time to open it up for questions. I just forgot to mention one thing before we do that, is in terms when I was talking about Sama, it might even be worthwhile to go back and look at chapter 5, which Neetaji and team did, wherein Anandji actually elaborated on Sama from the seer perspective and on the seeker perspective. And here the Lord talked to us about Sama from the seer perspective as well. So I just thought I'd mention it, but forgotten to mention it. But maybe some time around for a few questions, Madhuji and GVG.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, amazing presentation from GVG and Suresh ji, giving quite an exhaustive review of how this chapter is looking like and what we need to do. And of course, we need to do with the next 6 shatkas will tell us about on whom do we need to do this dhyana. We can't just do dhyana on just looking at a wall. Yeah, tapaso vapi alingat, as Mundaka Upanishad says. You can't just go into tapas and have alinga. No shastra perspective and whom are we going to do and all that. So look forward to the next shatka. But amazing discussion. Suresh ji, we could perhaps open for Q&A for the next 5-10 minutes if that's okay. If people have time, yeah, 5 to 10 minutes, we'll take some questions, but maybe I can start. For me, I hope this is helpful. For me, I have a small little equation with regards to how to run this. Sannyasa yoga is always an important aspect for me, Sureshji. Sannyasa and yoga. Sannyasa, I've understood from Padmanabhacharya. Sannyasa means think 3 things: desire, ego, fruits of action. You got to do nyasa of these 3: desire, ego, and your fruits of action. And you can't just give sacrifice of this and stay in an empty space. You have to divert it to something else. So that is the yoga where you surrender that to the Paramatma. So that is how I've understood that yoga aspect of sannyasa yoga. And then to put it into practice, as you beautifully said, is that abhyasa needs to happen. So perhaps maybe when we are in some material situation, maybe if we put this, DEF, I say definitely, defi, I keep reminding myself. And then perhaps maybe progress. So that is the abhyasa that I try to put into practice, but it's not easy. You slip all the time. You slip probably 10 times. Maybe once, maybe something you have made better. So that's how I've seen this, Sureshji. Thank you very much, GVG and Sureshji, for excellent presentation. Anand, if you have any questions.
Just one question, and first of all, thank you very much. That was a great session. It's a long session, but I don't know how the time went off. The question is to GVG and perhaps Sureshji as well. 632. Atmaupamena sarvatra samam pashyati yorjuna. And GVG, you said, Krishna himself says, friends of Pandavas are my friends and enemies of Pandavas are my enemies. So that very statement itself says it is not samam, sarvatra samam pashyati. What I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is it only applies to sattvic souls, like Pandavas. If Krishna is saying Pandavas, I see them equally in them as friends and therefore as foes, that tells me that it is not extendable to the other jivas, like tamasic jivas or foes. Like when Sureshji said samatvam, Sureshji also mentioned we don't even treat our own children equally. So I think it should apply to a particular class. Like I cannot treat friend and a foe same. So I just wanted to know what was that about.
Okay, so I'll just give my opinion. I mean, from what I understood. So I think it's very, yeah, it's we need to understand the word samam. And Suresh, he took us through various examples that whenever he talked about samam and all those things, right? But then this one is in a particular relation to about the yogyata of the person, right? So yes, God has spoken, samam sarveshu bhuteshu, right? And all being, I am there as sama. But what does sama means in here? Like for example, yesterday also we were talking about it. Like in a class, when somebody puts in a great effort, the teacher gives that person a grade. When somebody doesn't, right, he gives them an F grade. So definitely he did not do the same thing. So in that way, you can say, hey, how is this sama, right? But it is sama because you have to reward the person who put in that, right, the kind of effort, and then have to punish somebody who didn't, right? So that is also sama. In fact, yesterday Sushruti said, it is sama means it is being equal and then also being fair, right? So the yogyata of the adhisthana also counts, right? So because according to the yogyata only the Lord treats them like that, right? And also puts his own power. Yad yad vibhuti massatvam tattat ujitameva va tattadeva avagachatvam mama tejo amsha shambhavam, right? So it is basically a lot of things have something as I have exalted, right? Something not. That means that means the Bhagavanta put more of his power. Mama Tejo Amsha Shamba, one part of his power and part of his is his own thing in that one more than the other, right? So definitely he did not treat everybody the same way, right? So that means according to the Yogyata, so Bhagavanta treats them or rewards them or even puts his own power accordingly in various things. So that is in that way he is not having like animosity over others or likes others and everything. Everybody he treats everybody the same, but then according to their yogyata. But in his own treatment, there is no pakshapada.
Just to add,
Did it answer your question? I don't know. I don't know.
It does answer. It does answer. Don't you think it means the only good ones when you treat the good ones equally? In the sense like Sattvic souls, like Pandavas.
just to add a slightly different perspective to what GVG was saying, the way at least I internalized. So that's why the concept of dynamic equilibrium came to my mind. Is that samatva means, I mean, if you look at the doctrine of equality, I mean, treating unequals as equally is crime, right? You can't treat unequals equally. So you have to treat unequals unequally. Now, if you ask the question of how unequally, right? that inequality should be proportional to the inequality that person possesses. So that should be equal. The inequality of the proportion of actions that you are treating in which should match the inequality that is possessed on or of whom that you are acting upon. If we can hold that plane of equality, which means that for a little good, or for whatever good happens in my life, how much I am drawn towards it, to whatever I am drawn away from the path when something bad happens, my reactions or the proportion of how much my mind wavers should be exactly proportional to the impact, and it should be equal. That should be sama. And that is how at least I was calibrating samatvam. And that's the thought which led me to dynamic equilibrium. GBG, I just thought I'll add to.
Yeah, sure. Right. And also, like Krishna again gives an example, right? In his own thing, right? Krishna is accused that he was instrumental in killing Bhishma, Drona, Karna, but all of them in a not in a straightforward way, right? So it was Krishna who bought Shikhandi and then was instrumental in kind of putting down Bhishma, and then made Yudhishthira tell a lie to kind of put down Drona, right? And then even Karna, right, when he was kind of fixing his chariot, he asked Arjuna to kind of to put the bana and then kill him, right? None of them are straightforward. So when I think Dhritarashtra's wife then accused him of that. I think he said that, well, I mean, I did, I did what they did, right? Basically, like saying that, when Draupadi, right, was helpless. And then at that time, where was Bhishma? Where was Drona? And then even Karna, right? All those things. Even Karna, right? The way they killed Abhimanyu, right? Was it straightforward? And other things. So he basically says that, like what Suresh just said, you have the message is Krishna's message itself is you have to treat unequals unequally.
Can
Thank
I
you.
also add a couple more points, Ananji, if you could permit? So, okay, so the samatvam there, another angle to that about the samatvam there is the constitution of the universe comes from the Vedas. Okay? The constitution is the same for everyone. So that is where the samatvam is. The constitution is the same. And if you abide by the constitution, which the Sattvikas do, then you reap something. If you don't abide by the constitution, then there is the consequence of this, which we see in our current situation. So the constitution is the same. So now your question is, this may apply only to the Sattvika Jiva, so there may be Tamasa Jiva. So then the question is, why can't Paramatma, if he is omnipotent, why can't he convert all the Tamasika Jivas into Sattvika Jivas so that everybody is doing the same thing? The God decides not to do so because that is his glory of self-limitation. He abides by the constitution which is under his control. That constitution is the same for everybody. And the type of jivas, as they do, so they reap. So that is where his samatvam is, because he is just holding that constitution which is called the Vedas, which is the same for everyone. And he just sits there, looks after the Vedas, and ensures that everybody reaps the benefits or the not so benefits of what they do. So that is another, I mean, that again is an important concept about Vedas and how Paramatma himself doesn't go beyond the Vedas. He doesn't change the nature of the souls. If he changes the nature of the souls, that means he is capable of doing that, but he decides not to do that because he abides himself by the constitution in which he is there. So that's how I was going to say. We got one question from Raji. Raj, do you want to come on and ask the question, and then we'll go to Neeta and Sushil. Right. Yeah. So you need to unmute.
Yeah, I was on mute. Oh, it's just a very simple question for a simple-minded person like me, who is a very newbie. All I was after. It was wonderful presentation, Suresh ji. Really, I put a couple of Dirga Danda to you in appreciation of that. And GVG, it was fantastic, really, what you clarified today. My simple question was: is it our karma which is punishing us, or is it Krishna who takes our karma into account and then gives the fruits accordingly? Because we don't know what is how much of I'm just want to clarify the quantification of the punishment here. So is it proportionate to our bad karmas, or is it the Krishna takes, because we don't know what is bad and what is good sometimes. So I just thought it was a simple question from a simple humble soul. Thank you. Was that
Okay, so I will just start. Please, Sureshji, also please come in, and then so Madhuji also join in. So I think it is kind of both. It is karma is the driving force, right? But then that is a jada, so it cannot act itself. So there has to be another governing body, right, who is capable of taking that karma into account and then distribute the punya or papa accordingly. So that is done by Bhagavanta. So there is an agency for both. The one is the driving force or the cause, and then but then there has to be like an nayamana karta behind that to make it all happen. So it is there are both the components are kind of involved, and then I don't know what was the other question was. Maybe like Sureshji would know, and then he can probably take over that one.
No, thanks, Jivj. I mean, just to add, perhaps, I mean, यशास्त्र विधिमुत्सृज्य वर्तते कामकारता न सिद्धिमाप्नोति न सुखम न पराम गतिम तस्मात् शास्त्रम प्रमाणन्ते कार्याकार्य व्यवस्थितम्. And that's what Krishna says, that I mean, if you follow, I mean, there is a constitution that Madhuji just referred to, right? I mean, you follow the constitution and you will reap the rewards. Now, the question about the extent, right? Who defines that doing, these 5 things, deserves Swarga? Or if I do these 12 things, then I get something more than. So it's, I guess the questions were 2 things. The way I understood Raj was asking the question was, one is it karma or is it Krishna? And how is this quantified? How is the reward quantified? So that's how I saw the 2 questions. The first question, of course, you answered. Karma is Jadaman, and it is Krishna who makes these things, and we act based on our swabhava. So where we're going to end up, I guess, is decided by not by Krishna. It is decided by our own jiva swabhava, and that is what is going to define where our final destination is. The path towards it, based on whatever sanchita karmas that we have accumulated, based on both the genetic environment, the acquired environment. So that a conducive environment as to where we are born is controlled by Krishna. And then he enables progress towards our destination that is predetermined. Krishna is not determining the final destination for us. So that's how I would understand, but I'll pause here. Any other thoughts, please?
I was going to just remind when Raji was talking about karma. So Raji, just qualify that karma. Yeah, is it our karma? What karma? Sakame karma, nishkama karma. If it is nishkama karma, it is not going to punish you. Yeah, nishkama karma is the path to karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, and dhyana yoga. So if you're doing nishkama karma, it is not going to punish you. I won't particularly say punish. You just reap what you sow. That's it. It's not punishment. It's not, God is not a cruel guy sitting there and punishing all of us because we have done bad karma. See, if you have bad karmic imprints, you have the consequence of that. We may be born as a worm or whatever, dog, worm, animals, whatever we might be born. So if we want to see that as a punishment, yeah, that's fine. So we have to qualify what kind of karma it is. That is the first one. The other one I just want to remind all of us is that Acharya, in more than 15 places, Acharya always recites the Bhagavatam verse 2:10-12. Dravyam karmashta kalashta swabhavo jivaye vacha yad anugrahata santi nasanti edupeksha. Karma is always under Bhagavanta's control. So that is another thing that we have to do because it's Jara. Then other one also, remember, the Abhimani Devata for karma is a guy called Pushkara. Pushkara is the Abhimani Devata of karma. And Pushkara's Antaryamin is Paramatma who is there, who ultimately controls. Then also don't forget there is a role for Chitragupta and Yama also. When we shed this gross body, we are going to make the journey as discussed in Katha Upanishad, and we will go to that Yamaloka, which is also in Swarga, where our Chitragupta is supposed to be holding accounts of individual karmas. He is holding accounts, and then he will do what are the positives, negatives, and so on, and he will have a chat with Yama, and then Yama will say, okay, you go this side and maybe get fried for a bit longer and then go to Swarga and so on. Or you have done good deeds, mate, so now you can go to Surya Loka, go to Devayana and go somewhere. So that aspect is also there. But ultimately, of course, it's Bhagavanta who controls karma. But we, as per our swabhava, we do our karma. That is the ultimate answer to that. That it is Jiva Swabhava, then Anadi Karma, then Purushakya Prayatna. Purushakya Prayatna then leads to karma, and the karma then will lead us to a birth and rebirth. So it's a very, very interesting topic. So you picked a fantastic question. Thank you.
Thank you, Madhuji. It is clearer now. I mean, obviously there are a lot of unknown things, as you put yourself, really. But only we can hope that whatever karma we are doing is a nishkama karma. Sometimes it is difficult to know: am I doing a nishkama karma, or am I doing a karma with some element of karma which I am not aware of? So, I mean, I really prostrate for you all guys for clarifying this to us. Thank you.
Neeta Sushruji, you had some questions?
No, I was just trying to think of an example for the Samatvam part of it, as you explained about the way there's a constitution. But similarly, if you take a simple example of either exam rules or like these are the rules we are going to apply to assess somebody, those assessment rules are the same for all students, isn't it? So it's assessed according to that. That is one way of looking at it. The other one is like, say, if you're a consultant, a junior most consultant will not be getting the same pay as the senior most because their experience is different. But if they're all at the same point, they'll all be getting the same level, which means they've put in all that effort and they've reached there. Once they've reached there, they get the same thing. So it's like how many janmas we have passed through, which we don't know. We don't know. And that is why there is what we see as a difference is we don't know that how much effort has gone in. But if everybody has put in the same effort, everything is the same, then the result will be the same. Does that, I don't know if I've made it clear or more complicated. That's all I wanted to say.
Thanks, Neetaji. And interest of time, perhaps, if there are any further questions, please pass them on. Maybe, Neetaji, if you just want to give a quick intro to the quiz, and then we will close today's session.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks for this opportunity, Sureshji and Susanji, for giving me this to do the quiz. First of all, I would like to say thanks to Pratibhaji. She is also helping out with this with the quiz questions. What we are planning to do is do some homework questions, which will be circulated before on the Sahiti group, which you can take your own time and answer them, and we'll just share the answers on the group. Again, depending on the time, we might discuss some during the session. And for presentation itself, we will, what ideas we've got is that some situation in daily life, and then you link it to a Gita shloka, an audio round where very common famous shlokas we will recite, well, we'll ask you to recite or identify depending on the first word, pictures and images, again, linking to the shlokas, and names that come in the first 6 chapters of various people or Krishna. So those are the clues. The biggest clue is most of it will be from the presentations during these sessions. So please go and revise these, and then we'll have a discussion. So we'll try and keep it simple, easy, but also some challenging ones. And hopefully helpful for daily life. Thank you.
Thank you, Neetaji. So now as we come to the end of this session, we are coming to the end of the first Shatka for Dhyana. I thought we will end this with a prayer. Matar me matarishwan pitalatula guru bhratrarishtapta bandho स्वामिन् सर्वान्तरात्मन्नजरचरैतज्जन्म मृत्यामयानाम् गोविन्दे देहि भक्तिं भवति च भगवन्नूर्जितां निर्निमित्तां निर्व्याज्यां निश्चलां सद्गुणगणबृहतीं शाश्वतीमाशुदेव. So we do conclude this session. Any closing remarks, Madhuji, before we close the meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Suresh, very quickly. So, I think once we get the guest lecture sorted out, we are planning, as we discussed, combining guest lectures and a quiz. So, hopefully, it will be in the next couple of weeks or so. We're dependent on when the guest lecturer is available. So, please bear with us. Once we get that, then we will get the quiz, the exciting quiz that's coming along. So, in the meantime, we'll carry on with the Upanishad Chinthana. Next week, we'll touch base. All the things that we have discussed here of dhyana, it so happens it comes in that next verse. So we will also, it makes the next verse a little bit easy to navigate. So we'll discuss that as well. So Suresh, before we close, can we just recite Om and close today, please?
Yep. Om.
Great. Thank you everyone for joining. A wonderful session indeed. Yeah. Stay safe. See you next week. Thank you, GVG and Sureshji, for an excellent session. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.